Weather day here in Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark. Fans coming in. It may be the best weather day we've had so far. It's the middle game of this three-game series. The Reds and the Nationals here on Fox Sports Ohio. On a pleasant Saturday afternoon, and welcome to Reds Baseball. I'm Jim Couch along with Chris Welsh. You mentioned the middle game of this series here, the Reds and the Nationals. Game one last night was a bomb fest for the Reds. They hit 6 home runs in the game, and they now, Chris, have 10 on the year, tying the Major League record.
Remember back in the old days when you had to dial 8 in the long distance? Well, the Reds were dialing 8 last night at Great American Ballpark. Zach Cozart twice, Todd Frazier twice. I mean, it was a bomb fest, as you said. And these balls were hit all over the place. And this is a ball club, Jim, that has had a lot of home runs over the years. A lot of their scoring depends on home runs, just like it has so far this year. 10 home runs by 6 different players. Of the 26 runs the Reds have scored so far this year, 19 of those have come from home run balls, and maybe that can keep it going today.
Well, Zach Cozart had his first multi-home run game last night. Todd Frazier had a multi-home run game last night as well. Now, one of the guys they're driving in has done a tremendous job on that leadoff spot so far this year, and that, Chris, is Shin Soo Choo.
Well, you know, when the Reds signed him, the word was Shin Soo Choo was an on-base monster. I mean, an on-base percentage over his career, up over 360. Well, when you get on base 10 of your 20 plate appearances, you are really setting the table for the guys in the middle of the lineup. And so far, he's done his job. He's played good defense. He's gotten on base. He's hit home runs. I mean, nothing more than you asked for that you can do.
6 runs scored. He leads the league in that department so far. And he'll be in that leadoff spot again this afternoon for Dusty Baker's ball club. All right, coming up, the pitching matchup of this game. We get to the number 5 spot for the Reds. Mike Leake goes for Cincinnati. Lefty Ross Detweiler for the Nationals.
Of the Cincinnati Reds and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, as you can see right there are some fans here at the ballpark coming out in short sleeves. It is, as I mentioned, one of the best weather days of the year. Weather today brought to you by Eric Dieters, attorney at law. Let's take a look at our weather conditions, brought to you by WKRC Weather, Channel 12. They give us this. 59 degrees right now at game time, partly cloudy. The temperatures are expected to go into the mid 60s, maybe even high 60s by a little bit later on this afternoon. Pitching matchup. Let's start, Chris, with Mike Leake.
Well, the much talked about Mike Leake in spring training. He didn't know whether he was going to have a job on this ball club or not, depending on whether Aroldis Chapman would be moved to the rotation. But you can see what he did last year at career highs and starts. He won 8 games. He has 6 games over 500 in his career. Not bad at all for a 5th starter. And he's a guy that's going to pitch to contact and get a lot of activity in the infield. Ross Detwiler, big, tall left-hander. This 6'5" lefty had a good earned run average. He is under 500 in his career, although he had a pretty good year last year. They've got big expectations for this tall young man out of the St. Louis area pitching for the Nationals. A lefty-righty matchup today at Great American Ballpark.
And he's made 4 starts in his career against the Reds, 0-3 against Cincinnati so far this year. All right, coming up, Mike Leake tries to keep it going with the first 4 in the rotation did, and that is a 2.01 ERA. 4 starts, 4 quality starts so far. America for 36 straight years by Cincinnati USA Regional Tourism Network. Book your stay at CincinnatiUSA.com and by Skyline Chili. Feeling good? It's Skyline time. Reds and the Nationals meet for the 2nd time in this 3-game series. Day game today, another day game tomorrow. Big night here last night, 6 home runs and a victory 15-0 by the Reds. And now Davey Johnson will send this lineup out there this evening, this afternoon, I should say. The former Reds manager. His lineup looks like this. Denard Span will lead off. He'll be in center field. Then Jason Worth in right. Bryce Harper in left. Cleanup hitters Ryan Zimmerman at 3rd. Then Chad Tracy in for Adam LaRoche, who has a bit of a stiff back. Ian Desmond is at short. Bottom 3 include Danny Espinosa at 2nd. Wilson Ramos does the catching. And batting ninth and pitching is Ross Detweiler. They'll face the right-hander, 25-year-old Mike Leake.
Now, the one thing about being a number 4 or 5 starter in the rotation, that you have a long time from the time that you last pitched in spring training to the time you finally get to toe the rubber regular season. That may have accounted a little bit for the problems that Dan Herron had last night for the Nationals. Let's hope that does not happen to Mike Leake today, because he is a guy, because the way he has to pitch with his stuff has to be right on the corners, on the black, on the knees, and so on, in order to get the job done easily.
It's the first pitch strike in there to Bernard Span, who now lifts this pitch into shallow left field. Cozart out, Heisey in. Heisey makes the catch, and a good start for Leake on the Reds. Span is retired. Take a look at the Reds defensively. Our forward defensive look. Heisey, who just made that catch, again out in left field, makes his 4th straight start. Chu and Bruce, the other 2 outfielders. Frazier and Cozart the left side. Phillips and Votto the right side. Devin Mesoraco made his 2013 debut last night late. Gets his first start in this game here this afternoon. Mike Leake, according to what Chris is talking about, last worked on the 27th of March in spring training against San Diego. So he goes, what, 9 days between appearances,
which is normally just about twice as long as you would normally be during a regular 5-man rotation.
Jason Worth up there. So far in the year, 2 out of 16 with a home run. Last night in the game, Worth was hitless in 4. He struck out 1 time. Tim McClellan calling the balls and strikes here this afternoon. Jerry Meals is at first. Marvin Hudson at second. Jordan Baker is the umpire down at third.
Well, it's really obvious the way the Reds have wanted to pitch Jason Worth so far in this series, and Homer Bailey did a nice job just by staying away. They want to stay out of the middle in part of the plate and make him hit the ball the other way.
To the left of the shortstop, and Cozart will make the play, and Worth is retired. 2 up, 2 down. Zach Cozart, a pair of home runs last night. He was one of 2 Reds, along with the third baseman Todd Frazier, who had a multi-home run game. In fact, if you go Cozart and Frazier, the left side of the infield, shortstop and third, it's the first time in Reds franchise history that the shortstop and the third baseman have had multi-home run games on the same night.
Boy, you did a lot of homework last night. Come up with that.
Courtesy of the Media Relations Department. Here's Bryce Harper with 2 men out. Harper held hitless for the first time this year. Last night he went 0 for 4. He had had 2 hits in each of the first 3 games of the season, those against the Marlins.
Had an interesting conversation this morning with the manager of the Nats, Davey Johnson, about Bryce Harper. You know, what have you seen different this year that you didn't see from Bryce Harper? And you know, it was a very interesting comment. And Davey Johnson's a guy who'll just tell it the way it is. You said last year Bryce Harper came on the scene when Jason Worth was injured, got hot for 30 days. Pitchers adjusted to Harper. Harper went into a slump for 30 days, and he finally adjusted. He said a young player has to live through that. You can't read about it. You can't look at video. You have to live through it. And it's about not charging one.
How about that catch by Leake on that blistering line drive up the bat of Bryce Harper. Quick reaction by number 44. The very nice catch of that line drive by Bryce Harper to end the bottom of the first. And now Dusty Baker's club gets to bat against the left-hander Ross Detweiler. Dusty's victory last night, the 422nd of his Reds managerial career. And there you see number 1584 overall. Here's the Reds lineup this afternoon. Shin-Soo Choo, Chris Heisey, Joey Votto at the top. Brandon Phillips, Jay Bruce, Todd Frazier in the middle. And the bottom three include Zach Cozart. For the first time this year, Devin Mesoraco and Mike Leake against Ross Detweiler.
Now the big tall left-hander right out of the St. Louis area in Missouri went to Missouri State, and that's where the Nationals picked him in the first round of the draft back in 2007. They've done a lot of work with his delivery. If you watch him today, he'll be a little bit across his body, the same way we talked about Jared Weaver, the opening day starter for the Angels. But he's much better than he once was. They've got high hopes that down the road Detweiler can work his way into being a number 2 or 3 pitcher in a rotation.
Interesting comment made by Steve McCaddy regarding the across the body approach of Detweiler. He said, you know, there's a decent amount of guys that do that. He said, you know, Bob Gibson did that a lot too. He was pretty darn successful.
There's one. Got any others?
Just saying what Steve McCaddy said.
Well, you're right, you know, and I do agree with him, because you don't want to change. I think what he's trying to say is you can't change a kid completely all at one time, a little bit at a time, so he keeps the comfort level. And he's had a good minor league system, and a good minor league experience, and he's got good stuff. I mean, he throws 93, 94 miles an hour, has a curveball and a changeup.
Is it a ball and a strike to Choo? Highlighted him in the pregame. 10 for 20 in terms of getting on base this year. 20 plate appearances, been on 10 times. Hit wise, he's 5 out of 15. He was part of the home run parade last night. One of the 6 the Reds hit. He hit a solo shot in the 4th. Short hop played by the second baseman Espinoza, and Choo is retired to start the Reds' first inning.
Yeah, that was a fastball that he grounds out to second base, and he only throws 3 pitches. He's a throwback in that respect, Ross Detweiler is. His fastball averages about 93. He throws out a lot. 80% of the time. That's very high average for a fastball at the major league level. Curveball, those 13% of the time, right around 79, 80. And a changeup at 84. So he's got good separation between his fastball and his changeup, and 3 quality pitches that he can throw over the plate.
Would you, Chris, consider him a strikeout pitcher?
No, I really wouldn't. Last year he had 164 innings and he struck out right around 105. So, I mean, a strikeout pitcher comes closer to striking out 1 batter per inning. But I mean, I'm a little reluctant to categorize a guy as a strikeout pitcher or not. I'd rather categorize a pitcher as a fly ball pitcher or a ground ball pitcher, a guy that you can run on, who you can't run on, a guy that has an out pitch that you don't want to see, so you should swing early in the count, that kind of stuff.
Tap it to the right side of the mound, and Detweiler will get Heisey at first, although, boy, you can really see Heisey hustling down the line. 2 out for Votto. Ford Dealer's defensive look at the Washington Nationals. Bryce Harper, Denard Span, Jason Worth across the outfield. Ryan Zimmerman, Ian Desmond on the left side. Danny Espinoza, Chad Tracy getting the start at first. On the right side, Ross Detweiler throws to Wilson Ramos. This is their 5th game of the year, and Ramos is making his 3rd start behind the plate. There's last year's National League Rookie of the Year, Bryce Harper, out in left field. Talked last night about the fact that he played a good deal of center field last year, but the Nationals acquired Denard Span in the offseason, trade Michael Morris, and the former catcher in his amateur days. Harper is now an outfielder, a transition that he's made pretty darn well. Votto with 2 men out, nobody on. So he comes into the game at 4 for 14 with a run batted in. That was the game-winning RBI on Wednesday night. Last night, a 3 for 4 game. Nationals went down in order, and Detweiler trying to do the same to the Reds in the bottom of the first. This is the 2nd game to start in the National League today. They're also playing at Citi Field in New York. During the first inning there, Miami, which won its first game of the season last night after being swept by these Nationals. leading early in that one, 1-0. That one knocks Votto down, and he goes right onto the stomach in the batter's box.
I think it got him. They're going to give him first base.
Tim McClellan says yes, that ball did clip. It appeared the uniform of Joey Votto. He takes first base. Nothing out of the Nationals dugout. Let's take a look.
I don't think this was intentional, and I also don't think it actually hit Joey Votto, although he think it might have. It came so close. I think that's just a product of throwing across your body and not getting your arm catching up with your legs. Good slow motion right there, brought to you by our Performance Honda Exmo, and it did not get Votto, but he'll get first base, and fortunately everybody's A-okay. I'd hate to see that right there, that one pitch spark some kind of an incident between these two ball clubs.
Here's Phillips with Votto, and a pretty good lead over there at first, being held by Tracy. Brandon fouls it back. To Phillips. Read some tweets last night after the game, and interested in your thought on, as you mentioned, you'd hate to see that hit batsman spark something. The Reds scored that run in the 8th inning last night, a double by Bruce, single to right by Frazier. They waved the runner in. It made it 15-0 at the time. Do you think the Nationals may have thought that that run could have been held up to right field? Worth is there, and the inning is over.
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. No score, through 1. Serious injuries, call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Let's talk starting pitching, Chris. How about that?
Well, the Reds starting pitching in the first 4 games. I mean, how much better can you expect it to be? They're 2-0, 2.4 earned run average collectively. You go through Cueto, Latos, Arroyo. You know, last night you have Homer Bailey throwing the ball 95, really wherever he wanted to. And, you know, there's really no weakness in the starting 5. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, hey, what about Mike Lee? I mean, 5th starter. You know, he had a bad year last year. Why are they hanging around with him? I think what people don't understand, that the 5th starting spot in baseball is the hardest job to keep in all of sports.
Sure.
Because every year when you evaluate your ball club, you try to, you know, get better from the bottom up. And that 5th starting spot seemingly always open for grabs, but it really isn't here. until somebody can unseat him.
You talked about Ross Detweiler, the number 5 starter for the Nationals, being career-wise under 500 at 16-22. Here you have Leake into his 4th year. He's over 500 by 6 games at 28-22.
I think a lot of teams would like to have Mike Leake in their rotation, but he knows he's got to go out there and pitch and perform.
He gets Ryan Zimmerman to start the 2nd, and he gets a ground ball to Phillips, ranging to his right. Brandon will make the play, and Zimmerman is gone for out number 1.
What I really like about Mike Leake is that when he's on his game, he pitches very fast. I mean, between pitches, keeps the pace going. He changes speeds well, and he throws a lot of strikes. And I think as long as you do that, that's a formula that's going to breed success. He's got a very good infield behind him, good outfield defense. He might as well let those guys earn their money.
Chad Tracy batting for the first time this year. Let's go back to what we were talking about in the bottom of the 1st inning. Did the Reds send a runner maybe when they didn't need to?
Yeah, I remember that play, and I thought fleetingly the same thing when I saw Jay Bruce being waved around 3rd. And my answer to that is no. I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as running up the score in baseball.
That's going to be a hit for Tracy into center field. He broke his bat in the process. The business end of that thing ends up way down near first base. First base runner for the Nationals, a 1-out single.
Now there might be at the amateur level when you're running guys extra bases on pass balls and wild pitches and so on, but I think when it comes to baseball, I mean, after all, Dusty Baker essentially emptied the bench.
Sure.
And put in every second string player that he had. Xavier Paul comes off the bench and hits a grand slam. You can't tell these players individually, I don't want you to try your best. And I can't remember who hit that single that drove in Jay Bruce, but I mean, are you going to rob him of a potential run batted in at the end of the year?
It was Frazier who hit the ball into right.
So you think about it, if you're Todd Frazier's agent and you say, well, you know, we're going to base our negotiations on what he did as far as numbers this year, and how many times might that happen where he knocks a run in and a guy gets held up at 3rd because the score was already blown up.
I can completely understand it from a Red standpoint. I guess what we're trying to get to also is, if you're on the other side, if you're on the National side, do you think that they thought, you know, they could have held that guy at 3rd?
Well, I can tell you that maybe they're looking for motivation, and getting beat 15-0 ought to provide enough motivation.
Fair enough. Ian Desmond is the man at the plate. He's 2 out of 14 this year. He had a hit last night, 1 for 4. He's the Nationals shortstop.
Good fastball hitter. They tried to throw him some breaking balls last night. Always ready for that number 1 is Desmond.
He's got that slightly open stance. Now he's at a ball and a strike. Make that 2 balls and a strike. Big crowd on hand here at Great American Ballpark. As we talked about earlier, this is a doubleheader day baseball wise here at the stadium. After this game, a collegiate contest between the University of Cincinnati and the University of Louisville. Great League's move to first, Chris.
You know, Jim, we talked about Ross Detweiler, the National starter, being very simple. He's got 3 pitches, fastball, curveball, change. But Mike Leake, by contrast, is a little bit more complicated. He throws 5 different pitches, and he moves them all around. He throws his fastball at 46% of the time. Then he's got his cutter at 24% of the time. So you add those up. Those are both kind of fastballs. He throws a slider, a curveball, and a changeup. And I think sometimes when Leake runs into problems, those pitches kind of blend all together. There's not a lot of speed difference between his fastest and his slowest.
Into right field, sending Bruce to the track, and Bruce will have room to haul it in, and Desmond is retired. Tracy retreats to first base.
Now, with the way the ball was flying out of here last night, anytime the ball goes in the air like that and you're on the mound, you're holding your breath. You see Jay Bruce off and running to the right field gap. You're thinking, oh, please come back.
Well, 6 of them last night for the Reds. It gives them 10 on the year. They're tied with Colorado for the lead in Major League Baseball through the first 4 games of the year for the most home runs. But the most interesting number of that is they hit 6 last night, meaning they They hit more in one game than 25 teams have hit so far this year in the big leagues. That's the amazing number of that.
You were up late studying.
That is a Josh Hall stat right there.
Well, I know he stays up late studying.
We know that. Runner aboard with 2 out. No score. We're in the top of the second. Reds trying to make it 4 in a row in the win side of things after the opening day loss. Into right center field off the bat of Espinosa. This could give the Nationals the lead. Here comes the throw in. They will hold the runner to the Nationals at third. Trent Jewett put the stop sign on Chad Tracy as he chugged into third base. That's a double for the switch hitting Espinosa. And they knock on the door, second and third with 2 out.
You know, one thing you notice when you really boil down the numbers about Mike Leake is that a lot of times he gets hurt early in the count. His first pitch or his second pitch or even his third pitch. Those are the ones that are the toughest for him to get by. And this one pretty much a get ahead fastball to Espinosa, who lines it over the head of Chu in right center field and gets an easy double.
Third hit of the year for Espinosa. 2 of them have been doubles. And now with 2 out and the catcher up, they will elect, will the Reds, to put him on intentionally and face the right-handed hitting, left-handed throwing Detweiler.
That's a good call right here. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. You certainly don't want to take a shot right here and let Wilson Ramos come up and ruin your day by punching in a base hit when you've got the pitcher in the on-deck circle.
Well, the Nationals will have the bases loaded with 2 men out and their pitcher up here in the top of the second. These 2 teams come in with identical records into this game, each at 3 wins and 1 loss. Reds actually are atop the National League Central with that mark. The Nationals and the Braves are 3-1 in the National League East. No undefeated teams left after the Nationals lost last night. No teams without a victory after the Marlins won in their game last night. So here's Detweiler. Last year he had 2 hits in 45 at bats. He's a career .056 hitter. So yeah, pretty good mood to put on.
2 hits with 3 runs batted in. He's making the most of them.
Leake works from the stretch. And it's 0-2. Personal preference, I guess, whether to work from the stretch or the windup with the bases loaded.
Yeah, it's where you feel the most comfortable right now. And he's been working out of the stretch since the second batter of the inning.
And he's a strike away from hanging a 0 here in the top of number 2. And he does it. Strikeout of Detweiler. First of the game for Leake. And the Nationals leave the bases loaded. We're in the middle of the second. With you this season. MLB.TV is celebrating 11 years, so make sure you catch every Reds Out of Market game live, online, or on your favorite mobile devices in HD quality, which MLB.TV Premium. Visit Reds.com to order. Get all the details. MLB.TV, baseball everywhere. Scoreless through an inning and a half. Marlins had checked that the Nationals had 2 hits plus an intentional walk in the top of the second. They leave those 3 on as Detweiler struck out, and now Detweiler back to work. He hit Votto in the bottom of the first. He was stranded, and now it'll be lefty Bruce, righty Frazier, righty Kozar.
Well, what a nice crowd here this afternoon. Had a big crowd last night for Fireworks Friday. Big crowd, as you said, Jim. A lot of these folks out here today finally able to come out just wearing their T-shirts, the Reds jerseys. Finally get your jacket off.
Yeah, you're going to have a good weather day today. You're going to have another pretty good one tomorrow. Team goes out of town. There's going to be a little bit of rain next week, but the Reds won't be back for a week. And that second homestand, Reds will have in the Philadelphia Phillies for 3, the Marlins for 4, and the Cubs for 3. Bruce scorches this ball into right. That's a base hit. He had a couple of doubles last night. That's his first hit that's not been a double. Maybe this is a good sign for Jay Bruce.
Well, it's also his first hit to right field. I mean, he just jumps on the first fastball that he sees from Ross Detweiler, and another base hit for Bruce off of a left-handed pitcher. That might be a good sign. Think about that particular swing. He got his foot down in plenty of time, Jay Bruce did, and he still stayed back. And we've seen Jay Bruce go from hot to cold seemingly like a flip of a switch.
He's on to start the bottom of the second.
Another look at that swing from Jay Bruce. Notice how quickly he gets his foot down right here and still keeps his body back. It's kind of a no-step stride for Jay Bruce right there. Keeps his head still, and nice line drive to right field.
Here's Todd Frazier. What a big night he had last night. 4 out of 5 with 4 runs batted in, including a multi-home run game, the second of his career. The 4 hits, a new career high for the third baseman. 4 RBIs equaled a career high for him. So he comes into this game now at 8 for 17. 3 home runs and 6 runs batted in. The 3 home runs and 6 RBIs have him tied for the National League lead.
You know, I'm wondering if Todd Frazier really needed a start like this, because a lot of talk about if there was one question mark about this ball club from an everyday player standpoint, it would be third base. You know, is Todd Frazier going to be able to fill the hole left by Scott Rowland? Can he finally play every day and show everybody that he can play defense and hit? Well, you get off to the kind of start that he has, and there's no question at all that people aren't even talking about it.
So it takes the pressure off, doesn't it? Detweiler delivered the pitch, but time had been called by the home plate umpire, Tim McClellan. Hey, do you remember seeing the story late in spring training where Tim McClellan called a couple of batters worth of plays, a couple of batters worth of pitches as the home plate umpire behind the pitcher? Do you remember?
I did not see that, no.
There had been an injury to the home plate umpire, and instead of delaying the game while another umpire went off to get his gear, they simply went with 2 umpires. He went out behind the mound and called balls and strikes for a couple of batters till that half inning ended, and then the other umpire came out with his gear and they resumed the regular game.
How do you do?
Apparently all right.
All right.
A little odd looking.
Just like the good old days. I mean, the old days, when the umpires wouldn't show up to an amateur game, so you pull somebody's uncle out of the stands and you stick him behind the pitcher and say, Uncle Joe, we'll let you be the umpire today. This was a no-doubter by Frazier off of Danny Hare last night, a second deck job. He also hit one to right center field, and boy, as long as Todd Frazier continues to use the entire field, he'll be okay.
Jumps out of the way of that one, up and in. evens the count at 2 balls, 2 strikes. Detweiler never had a whole lot of success on the road. Last year's ERA almost 2 runs higher away from Nationals Park than it was at home. Lifetime 3 wins, 15 losses on road games.
You wonder right here whether Dusty Baker will send Jay Bruce. Nobody out, full count. Thinking that maybe Todd Frazier will be able to put this ball in play, and Bruce, if he's able to get a base hit, will move to third.
There he goes, and Frazier gets it in the air toward left center field. Room for Harper. And that's the first out of the inning. Bruce retreats. Harper makes the catch. The batter is Zach Cozart. Cozart got into the fun last night as well with a long ball.
Well, you're not kidding. I mean, maybe not as long as the home runs that were hit by Todd Frazier, but certainly equally as important to that Reds effort last night. That one bouncing off the top of the yellow line, and another one for Todd Frazier. Shortstops and third basemen wild last night.
Cozart made the comment after the game. May not have traveled as far as Frazier's. I'm not quite as strong as Frazier, but they did get over the wall.
Well, I got news for them. At the end of the year, they don't ask you how far, they ask you how many.
Yeah. Cozart's the one who hit the ball early that Davey Johnson came out, talked to the home plate umpire about it, but did not apparently ask for that ball to be reviewed. Again, a chance for Harper, who makes the catch. Cozart retired, 2 out. Here's Devin Mesoraco. One of the things that Dusty Baker was able to do last night with the score the way it was get a lot of the regulars out of the lineup. Haizu had started 3 in a row, took an early seat, as did Votto, as did Phillips, as did Hannigan. Mesoraco made his 13th debut with a single in the center in the 7th inning last night, so he's 1 for 2. Mesoraco last year hit .212 with 5 home runs and 14 runs batted in. Remember, though, after he was placed on the suspended list due to the umpire bumping incident, he didn't come back to the Reds team. Instead went to AAA Louisville, stayed down there until his September call-up, and then he was a lost man really up here. He did not get near any playing time late in the season.
And he lost a lot of confidence. His skills behind the plate began to deteriorate a little bit because he just was in kind of an overall funk. However, in spring training, you'd never even know it was the same guy. He came into spring training ready to play, high level of confidence, knowing that he had to have a good spring to make the ball club, and he did just that.
Rolls it toward the hole. Desmond with a backhand pick and throw, and they get the Reds catcher at first. The leadoff single by Bruce goes for naught. We're through 2, scoreless.
Game with Reds Live on Fox Sports Ohio. Reds Live has everything you need to know for that day's game, and it's only on your exclusive home for Cincinnati Reds baseball. Reds Live is presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing. Jim Day with you, and barring a playoff appearance here at Great American Ballpark, this is the last time we'll see Washington manager Davey Johnson here at GABP. He's announced that this will be his last year as a big league skipper, and before the game he was honored by the Reds. Walt Jocketty doing the honors of presenting some gifts to Davey Johnson, and Reds fans, well, they have a soft spot for Davey Johnson in their heart. Prior to Dusty Baker leading the Reds to the division title in 2010. The last time the Reds had won a division, 1995. Davey Johnson as the manager. He took that team all the way to the NLCS. As we go back upstairs to the Champion Windows broadcast booth, guys, there's not a better thinking man's manager than Davey Johnson. He was doing the money ball before Billy Beane made it famous.
Yeah, that was the first year, 95, of the wild card. 94 was supposed to be, but remember, there were no playoffs that year, and the Reds defeated the Dodgers 3 in a row, then went on to play the Braves. Unfortunately, were swept in that series. Davey Johnson fondly remembered here in the Queen City area.
Well, no doubt about it. He took the Reds to consecutive first place finishes in their division back in 94 and 95. In fact, I asked him today, you know, he got the call from Jim Bowden 44 games into the season. Tony Perez was the manager. He was fired after a West Coast road trip, and they called Davey Johnson. Davey Johnson was at a fish camp in Ocala, Florida.
A fish camp
that he has set up.
Frazier makes the play and throws the speedy Span out at first.
And he told Jim Bowden he'd be happy to take the team over, but he said, because you've got a nice lineup, but you've got a AAA bench, you've got a AAA bullpen, don't expect very much. And there wasn't a whole lot to be happy about that year. The Reds ended up in 5th place in 1993. It was not until 94 when Davey Johnson turned them into a ball club that was in contention.
Yeah, as you mentioned, they had the best record in the division in 94, but there was no postseason. The season ended in early August with the lockout / strike.
Yeah.
No World Series that year, and then they did go on, of course, to win that division again in 1995. 16th year as a big league manager for Davey Johnson, and I guess the most famous year for him would have been that 1986 team when he was the skipper of that New York Mets club that came back and defeated the Boston Red Sox in 7 games. Into right by Worth. This will get down, get by Bruce, go all the way to the fence. Worth has himself a 1-out double. He's in scoring position here in inning number 3.
You know, you watch Jason Worth bat, and he's so wristy with his swing that you would never ever believe that the guy's had surgery on his wrist. He broke a radial bone last year, was out for 75 games, and he just flips that ball off at the end of the bat and rifles it down the right field line.
Former All-Star is now out at second base. Here's Bryce Harper. Hit the hardest ball of this game thus far. Fortunately for the Reds, right back into the leather of the pitcher Mike Leake. That ended the top of the first inning. Harper muscles up one to right, and the Nationals have taken the lead on the 3rd home run of the year for Bryce Harper. Worth will score in front of him, and the Nationals lead 2-0. I was just about to say that Harper had been 0 for 5 in this series.
Well, as I said earlier, it's early in the count that it seems like Mike Leake gets hurt the most. Of the 26 home runs that he gave up last year, 12 of those home runs came either on the first or second pitch of the at-bat. And it happens again today. Jason Worth goes after him early in the count. Bryce Harper jumps on the first pitch he sees. And that gives you some food for thought if you're Mike Leake, is that maybe change things up early in the count and begin to pitch backwards instead of trying to rush that fastball by him for a first pitch strike.
5th home run by the Nationals this year, and Harper has 3 of them. The base is empty with 1 out for Zimmerman. Reds will need to come from behind to get the win in this game. Zimmerman grounded out his first time. And now Leake falls behind 3-1. Bryce Harper, of course, we talked about him being at 19 years old last year, 19/20. The rookie of the year in the National League, becoming the third member of the franchise back when they were the Montreal Expos, the first as a national, but the third in franchise history to win the Rookie of the Year award. You got to go all the way back to Andre Dawson, 1977, to find the last organizational player to be Rookie of the Year.
You know, Bryce Harper sometimes comes across as a little bit brash and cocky, you know, media reports, interviews, and so on, because he's had such the spotlight on him from so long. But I can tell you that this young man simply loves to play the game. I mean, he runs everything out. He's out here early working out. He came prepared to play in spring training right from the get-go. Hit over 460 during the spring. I think Reds fans have been treated to a nice opening part of the season when you see Mike Trout for 3 games with the Angels, and then you see Bryce Harper, 2 of the best young players in the game, coming right through Cincinnati to start the season off.
With 2 very good teams, the Angels and the Nationals. Look at Harper. Remember in his junior college days, he had that eye black, and it was dripping all the way down his face. Line drive caught by Chu in center field. That kind of led to the persona that he put forth also, didn't it? 2 out for Desmond. Desmond, his first time, fly deep to right. Now 2 out of 15 during this young season. Desmond has become a much better shortstop in terms of errors over the course of his everyday years with this organization. Last year committed only 15. Desmond was an all-star and a Silver Slugger winner 1 year ago. He had by far his best year. He hit 25 home runs. Right near the 300 mark at 292. Now Leake has him at a ball and 2 strikes.
Well, where Ian Desmond has really come along is on his defense. 2 years ago, he went out and committed 34 errors 3 years ago, 34 errors. In 2011, 23 errors, and then last year he knocked that number down to 15.
So in 2 years he more than cut it in half. Cozart will charge, step on the bag, force out at second on Zimmerman, and the top of the 3rd comes to a close. But Bryce Harper, 2-run blast to right, has put the Nationals in front. Time moment of the game. We look forward to passing that along later. And remember, if a Reds player hits a home run in this game this afternoon, hits the Toyota sign during this contest, Steven Dawson from Cincinnati will win this beautiful new Tundra here on display at Great American Ballpark. Register for your chance to win at an upcoming game by visiting your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. Reds fan hits the Toyota sign. Steven Dawson could be a big winner here today. Mike Leake will lead things off here in the bottom of the third. Looks to repeat what he did a year ago in terms of batting. He led the major league pitchers in hitting last year with 18 hits and a .305 batting average.
A note on a scoreboard here at Great American Ballpark: 45 hits from Mike Leake since 2010. That leads all other major league pitchers.
Esty used him, what, a couple, 3 times last year as a pinch hitter. Leake tries to get it going here in the bottom of the third. 2-0 Nationals on the strength of the 2-run homer by Bryce Harper. That is hit number 46 as Leake solidly hits it into center field, and the leadoff man is on.
Well, Mike Leake is just simply a ball player. I think he could probably play infield, outfield, and give you a pretty good effort no matter where you put him. But that's a good solid swing right there. Picks on a curveball and lines it into left center field for a base hit.
You think when they go over the Reds hitters, when Leake is pitching, they remind the pitcher, don't approach him as a pitcher, approach him as a hitter.
Oh yeah, there are always a couple of guys on each team that they go about that way in the scouting report. In fact, nowadays they may even get more in depth than that. They may say, hey, listen, this guy can hit a fastball up, make sure you keep it down, or throw him a breaking ball, something like that. Normally they used to say, hey, this pitcher can hit, just stay awake.
Chu bounced out to the second baseman to get the Reds' first inning started. He hits one the other way here, placed it perfectly in the hole, and the Reds have the tying runners on here in the bottom of number 3.
Well, how good is that stroke for Shin-Soo Choo? I mean, it's almost like he sees the shortstop snugging up to the bag at second base and double play depth. It opens up a hole on the left side of the infield, and he's just going to like play it right in there.
So Chu in this game is at his average in terms of getting on base. He came in at .500 on base percentage, reaching in 10 of his 20 plate appearances, and he's been on once in 2 here this afternoon. He represents the tying run.
Heisey here figures to get something to hit. You've got Joey Votto on deck.
Heisey tapped one to the right of the mound his first time and was retired. Heisey 265 overall last year, 262 against right-handers, and he'll beat this ball into the ground. It's going to be a 6 for force out at second. Heisey hustling all the way, legs it out at first. First and third with 1 out. But he rolled over on that pitch. Only the hustle of Heisey enabled him to beat that one out.
Well, Ross Detweiler gets a lot of ground balls. Over 60% of his outs come by way of ground ball. And he got the rollover right there. The Nationals just not able to turn it quickly enough to get a very speedy Chris Heisey going down the line.
Here now is Joey Votto. 3 hits last night. Tremendous average a year ago, and hitting with runners in scoring position. .370. Skimmed by a ball up and in his first time up. RBI chance for him here. He has 1 run batted in this season. Bounces ball to the second baseman. They get 1. They get 2 as as the first baseman Tracy came off the bag, apparently got his foot back on the bag in time, says Jerry Meals. Disagreeing down there is Billy Hatcher, but Votto rolls into the 4-6-3 inning-ending double play here in the bottom of the third. Let's take a look at it one more time. Jackpot worth $50 million. The drawing is at 11 p.m. Eastern time. $50 million tonight at 11. Ohio Lottery Powerball Jackpot. Time to go out and get your tickets after the game. All right, that last replay now that we saw going out of the break appeared to show that Tracy got his foot back on the bag. Here's another look. Different angle, much better angle. And you could see that Tracy's foot was not on the bag. So Billy Hatcher was correct down at first base.
Hatch usually doesn't argue unless he's got a reason.
Nationals got the benefit of the doubt on that double play ball. Now a deep fly to right that's going to be handled by Bruce, and on one pitch Danny Espinosa is retired, so one out here in the top of the fourth. Wilson Ramos potentially walked to get the Detweiler back in the second, a strategy that worked out for the Reds. Ramos, a guy who played in only 25 games last year. His season came to an end, ironically, here in Cincinnati on the 12th of May in a right medial meniscus tear, required surgery. Played in only 25 games last year. Jesus Flores caught more than anybody for this team last year. They also went out. Saw him last night. Kurt Suzuki. Flores did the bulk of the catching for this team a year ago. No longer with them now.
Well, they really missed Ramos last year, though. He's a guy that guns down about 29% of attempted base stealers. He's got a good arm, handles the catching chore very well behind the plate.
In the hole, nicely cut off by Frazier. Comes up throwing the first in time.
Well, Todd Frazier must be a big fan of Reds Live, because that play that he made right there, what I call the 5.5 hole between third base and shortstop, is a play that he covered in today's CBTS Tech Talk about how to range to your left, how to set your feet, how to get your arm up to throw a strike to first base. He did all those textbook just like he described it in our pregame show.
Well, he really squared